Welcome to CASEA Dialogue, the video podcast brought to you from CASEA BC that aims to bring businesses across 16 countries of Central Asia and Southeast Asia region, a safe space where we invite industry heads, market leaders, and entrepreneurs to come on the show as CASEA loggers to share insights, industry tips with all our CASEA friends watching or listening in, and also with the intention to inspire, open up new conversations to ignite possibilities to dream again. Location, courtesy of Ikigai at the River Walk. Welcome back to CASEA Dialogue. I'm Christina Chu, and we have here with us today Roy Lai. I'm honored to present to you what his accolades are. He is not only the president of STADA, ATB, and IPAC. He's also the CEO for the Center of Learning and founder of Surfy 369 as well as R&A Eagles. And of course, to add to the final piece of the puzzle, you're also the president of CASEA Academy Business. This is a long list of accolades. I'm so happy to have you here with us to talk about the whole idea in the area of education. Can you please tell us a little bit more about that? But before we move on any further, I'm sure our CASEA friends are more than willing to find out a little bit more about the real Roy Lai. Tell us everything about you, things that we cannot find on the internet. I want to know about your dreams, where you're from, where did you come from, because you just landed in our ecosystem and all of a sudden you're the president of so many institutions.
Thank you, Christina, and hi everybody, friends of CASEA. It's such an honor, Christina, to be with you today and you having lead this dialogue together with me. You asked a bit about myself. I'd like to start off by saying that I'm a learner. In fact, I'm a vivid learner and I'm an addictive learner.
Addictive
learner? Yes. I can't go without one every day.
Okay.
So that's my first sharing. Whenever someone asks me about, Roy, tell us a bit about yourself, I like to say that I have 4 lives. My first life is what I call a naughty life. I was naughty.
We were all naughty when we were young.
Yes, I think you can share my sentiment. I would have my mom, remember, chasing me with a cane almost daily. And I was not doing so well in school. So I was really naughty, okay? And my second life is what I call my glamorous life. Okay. My glamorous life started when, at one point of time, I asked myself and I said, I can't be that bad. Right? I can't be that bad. And I went on with a career that flourishes me. I spent a good number of years in corporate life, a corporate man. And I stayed in 4 countries as an expat.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was in Germany, I was in Australia, I was in Taiwan, I was in Hong Kong.
Nice.
4 countries as an expat. Right? But at some point of time when I look back, I told myself, is that all I'm going to do? Is that what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? And so an answer came to me and says, no. Right? And so I left my corporate life and went on to my third life, which is my current life. I'm not done yet.
Fourth life, isn't it?
Third life.
Okay.
Third life. My fourth life is my future life.
Okay.
Yeah, my future life. But my third life, which is still my current life, I anticipate my next life. So that's it, yeah. So my third life is a learning life, right? And I've been spending 23 years in this life. I said learning because in this life, I spent all my time facilitating learning for others and myself. You asked me about my portfolio. It is never something that I pursue, but it came because of my learning life. A vivid learner and an active learner. I love learning, and I love seeing others learn. That's just a principle that I get stuck to. For the last 23 years, it's been what I'm doing. Right? You can call it education, you can call it training, but I like to term it as learning. Yeah? Because I believe in it so much. Now, it has also come to a point whereby I think about my fourth life, which was planned. Right as I went through my third life, it was planned. And my fourth life is called other people's life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Service.
That's right. And that's where I would like to give my life to other people that's less fortunate. I have enough of my life. So that's a little bit about myself in terms of my four life.
I love the way that you actually coined it, because it's all about education, but what really stood out for me was the way that you said in your first life, you weren't a really good learner, but you really made up for it in your third life. And when it's all about learning now, it's all about giving as well. Yeah. Because I can see that even with growth and with trying to find a way to make things easy for other people to understand, that's service. Yeah. And that actually would roll over into your fourth life, like seamlessly. Yeah. Can I safely say that that's the plan that you have for CASEA BC?
Yeah. Actually, for CASEA BC, I met a gentleman. His name is Lung. You meet him too. We were kind of like having coffee, and we spoke about the different learning platform, learning environment, and we realized that there was some unpleasant learning atmosphere that is circling around, right? And as we spoke, he brought me to meet a guy called Rudy, which is apparently CEO of CASEA BC.
Who we've already met.
Yes. And so again, we sat down and spoke. And I was listening to him. I was not speaking at that time. I was just listening to him. And as he spoke about his Dream 2051, as he spoke about ETG, and his vision of having people out of poverty, having learning as one of the DNA, and serving the countries that requires it most. Well, it was that moment that I said, this flows with me. It goes into my heart. And there it is, right? So we started the communication from there, and we ended up having a lot of dialogue and a lot of sharing about how we could achieve the dream in the name of learning. Yeah. So this is a bit of how it flows in.
Roy, that's a really amazing journey that you're sharing with us today. But I really want to find out a little bit more about your professional background. How do you sit in all these roles?
Okay, let me start off by sharing with you a little bit about 369. Okay. 369 came along with the concept when I first started off my journey in the learning world. 369 sounds like a secret society code name, but in actual fact, it is the number, it's a universe number, Tesla, universe number. And if you look at the number, whichever way you add them up, it will equal to its original number. 6 plus 3 is 9, 6 plus 9 is 15, 1 plus 5 is 6. It's perpetual. But having said that, when I left my corporate world, I was a GM of a public listed company. And I left it. I dropped it completely and went into the learning world. I must be honest with you, that when I first come in, I have to go all the way to the bottom to start. Way up, right to the bottom to make a U-turn. And
That must have been really difficult.
Oh yeah, really. It's minus 100.
Because you're coming off from a managerial position, but you have to start all the way from the bottom because it's a totally new field.
That's right. A lot of us think that I'm already holding a big position and I can sit somewhere. Unfortunately, that's not the truth because it's a completely new industry. So you got to go down, right? And then it start all over again. So 369 apparently is the methodology of which you conduct your apprenticeship hours. In CASEA, we call it practiceship.
Nice, I like the new term.
Yeah, because apprenticeship, it's really meant for a different group of personnel, but practiceship means practice. You need to have your practice before you can get into the industry. So I went into the practice. Went all the way down to become an assistant. I went all the way down to set up rooms, and I learned. I used to have a book, right? It's now in Shaolin Temple, but I used to have a book that I write down every single detail that I learned on that day. I didn't need it. I didn't knew that I needed it today. I left it aside, but I do. And as I then came up, I continued my journey. And it just kept going and going and going and going. And before you notice, it's 15 years in industry. And I continue going because I couldn't stop. Right? Learning is just too addictive. The more I learned, the more I wanted it. And then I just kept going and going and going. And then at the end of the day, I realized it's my 23rd year. Yes, but I'm still young. So yeah. Right.
Yes, I can't tell.
Yes, yeah. So with that, I think if you ask me how do I land in this role, I want to be upfront to everybody that every journey tags along with experiences, right? And the experiences and the learning will bring you somewhere.
So what you're saying is that it's not just about the education or the certification, but also the experiences that actually help foster that understanding of how you're going to be able to manage yourself and navigate around this real world. Because you can't put into practice the theories that we get from a book, but we actually have to find a way to apply it into real life.
That's right. Yeah, that's the practiceship.
That's the practiceship. That's kind of like an apprenticeship, but
correct. On a professional level.
On a professional level.
Christina, you just mentioned about certification. I like to say this, that the best certification is actually based on your body. You are your own certification to present to others. It's not the piece of paper that's in your file.
And I think that we've actually pivoted quite far away from the way things were before, where we actually have to hang it on the wall, because right now our wall is our profile walls that we have on our social media sites. And the networking groups that we actually bring together and the communities that we have, the network and who you know is probably more important than what you know in this industry today.
Yeah, precisely.
That's amazing.
Nice, nice.
So I guess, this leads us very nicely into talking about where CASEA Academy business comes in. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? And, who are we serving with this? And how can we actually benefit from this? I mean, this is probably the best time to upgrade ourselves. Where businesses stop and pause and where the economy is in a slow pace. How can we upgrade ourselves and how can CASEA Academy help?
Yeah, firstly, I thought I want to say this. In learning and educating ourselves, economically down or economically up, it doesn't matter.
True.
COVID, no COVID, it doesn't matter.
That's true.
Yeah, we continue. That's my first point. CASEA Academy has got, firstly, a mission to help others grow. Alongside with CASEA BC. Okay? So CASEA Academy focuses on education and learning. CASEA Academy has got a tag onto business, and that is learning on business. Right? So that's one thing I want to clarify in that sense. And it is divided into two groups to help two groups. One is what we call learners. I like to at this moment call it delegates.
Okay.
Right? Because I think we all need to give due respect to everybody. So one is the delegates that's going to learn. That's one focus. And the way it's being structured is not just about content. We have two perspectives. One perspective is coined as self-learner. We want to go towards the direction of having our delegates being self-learner. Because as a self-learner, you're probably the biggest learner. You're probably the largest learner, because learning continues on your own.
It's true, every day.
Yeah, every day. I think one of the obstacles we realize is that we take learning's responsibility off to somebody else and not ourselves.
Remote.
Yeah, yeah.
Outsourced learning.
That's right, yeah. But we forgot that this is the person that needs the most learning. I used to say this, do not need to teach your child. The biggest person they need to be taught is ourselves.
Because this is why they mimic our movements and our actions and whatever we do.
Right, so if you're not taught, you probably are already teaching without teaching. And then you actually reprimand your children about doing, so first reprimand yourself. Right? So this self-learning concept is where we are going to mount on the principle of it quite strongly. And that's when we design it, whether be it its implementation or whether be its circumference, we're trying to head towards building everybody to be a self-learner. That's rule number one. The second rule is what we call the CPC triangular.
Okay. CPC
Yeah, triangular. It forms a triangular.
Yeah.
The first tip of the triangular is what we call content. That this is typically your classroom learning, face-to-face learning, your e-learning, your mobile learning, your M-learning, your V-learning, your I-learning, whatever. You receive the content. You may have some practice, but it's still simulated environment, right? You may have gone through, an IT or a poly. They're all content-based and simulated learning or simulated real-world environment. That's one. And the second tip of the triangle is the word P. It's called practice.
That's the practorship.
That's right. And we have our practi and practor, which will help each other in a real environment. Now we're sitting at a bar, just in case you don't know. We're sitting at a lovely bar. Right? This is the real world environment. And by 5 p.m., there will be patrons coming in, and there will be need to really face the real world. Okay? So the design of a program will take consideration of practice, practorship, practice. Right? This is where the real rubber hits the road.
Can I say that this is very similar to mentor-mentee relationships?
Yeah. So,
but in practice?
Yes, in practice.
In training?
Yeah. It goes to anything. It goes to the Japanese chef. It goes to your creative world. It goes to the movie stars. It goes to the pilot. Every industry, ironically, is there. But it's not properly structured in that sense, not properly presented in that sense. The third C is what we call community. Now, if you realize that, I think Christina will also have the same sentiment, or everybody here will probably have the same sentiment, that do you ever realize that after you go for your classes, perhaps after you go back to work and practice something that you learn, you tend to communicate with a friend either through WhatsApp or phone call and say, hey, look, what do you think about this? And you talked about it. That is apparently community learning.
It's a little bit along the lines of peer learning.
Yes, that's right.
But also borrowing from the fact that we like to share information, like
yeah.
sharing links
That's right,
on
yeah.
social media and everything.
Yeah.
And you're bringing that in line into your triangular.
Triangular, yes. Making it a formula. Yeah, we do casually. We do it casually. But we're now making it, and we believe that this is the formula.
Roy, what I'm hearing is extremely exciting, because what it sounds to me is you've actually found a way to integrate how we naturally behave in real life, using and borrowing from old ways of learning and meshing the two together so that it becomes seamless, integrating the frameworks of education from the past with our natural behaviors of, well, today's society, making it relevant and current with how we actually interact with our devices, social media, and everything.
It's all there, yeah.
And another thing that actually occurred to me was when you said you're renaming the whole identity of the learner and giving them the title of an advocate.
Yes.
Is that the?
That's right. Yeah.
That's pretty, that's pretty phenomenal. Like, you're giving them a new identity, which actually lifts them up, rather than calling them a learner. And some of them are retirees, some of them are like yourself, professionals coming in from a different industry.
Yes.
And just because they want to start afresh in another area, it doesn't mean that we bring them all the way down to the bottom. But giving them a new identity as an advocate is refreshing. I commend you for that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
I bring us back to also the triangle that you mentioned. It struck me that it's foundational.
Yes.
Actually, there is a rule called the 70-20-10, which is foundation in education.
Okay, tell me more.
10% of the time is where we learn in the classroom. Whether it's an online classroom, whether it's a relearning, M-learning, I-learning, O learning, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, I term it again slightly different.
Yeah, they're all
That's me, yeah.
great words that are somewhat familiar, but new again.
Yeah, and that only takes place, in terms of learning, 10%.
Okay.
And a lot of us, incidentally, thinks that that's it, I'm done with my learning. But unfortunately, if you do that, you lost 90% of the learning.
So what you've done is essentially rebranded learners into advocates. Okay, Roy, I'm going to push you a little bit further with this one. Could you give us at least 3 tips for potential advocates moving forward?
Okay, when you ask me about this question, I like to go back to my godfather. His name is Malcolm Knowles, right? And he coined self-directed learning.
Okay.
Right? And he said this: the best learner is a self-directed learner. He knows best what he wants to learn. And so I re-looked at it and re-look at the circumference we have, and I realized that we learn best when we are self-directed, but we learn worst when we are directed. So tip 1 is, as a self-directed learning principle, we want to avoid directing learning. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is that we often say that, oh, only children like to have fun. But I tell you, adult learners love to have fun even more. I realize sometimes we are cooped up so much that when we have it fun, your learners learned. In fact, they go into this mode of what I coined learning without learning, just like a child.
That's true. I mean, the very nature of not directing the learning is going to make them more curious and more investigative in looking for things. And when you make things fun, you actually make them more emotional. And what I remember is the things that I actually remember the most are the things that I had fun with and I was more emotionally engaged with. And you're right, that's pretty much the things that I actually hold with me today.
Wow. Thank you so much for resonating with me.
What is the last tip? I'm so curious to find out.
The last tip?
Yeah.
Tell you this. If I can pass this to anyone, I will. If I can invent a pill for everyone to take, I will. And it's called passion for learning.
That might be hard.
Yes. So I'm using my entire life, or my entire rest of my life, all my effort is to transmit this passion for learning. And I think with that, we'll build a better person, a better family, a better country, and hopefully a better world.
Well, I think this actually syncs up very seamlessly with CASEA BC's model, because right now, I believe that it's the best time for us to learn and expand ourselves, but it's not because there isn't anything else to do or because we are stuck at home, but more so because the entire world has come to this pause. And what that means is we have a chance to redesign a new way of moving forward. But in order for us to do that, we actually have to learn more things. And because the area of business and design is probably never going to be the same again, why don't we try to do something that we could be passionate about? To try to find a way that we could actually look at things that drive us from the inside. Intuitively move us into directions where we can be that self-directed learner because we want to find out more and not because we were told to study that and memorize this. And I think CASEA BC is probably the best place to do this because this is the first time that I'm hearing this is how you have transformed the old frameworks of learning and integrated it into the human behaviors where we're also satisfying two more needs of growth and contribution. I think for the CASEA Academy side, that's where we can actually come to you and find other directions and other options and choices where we can grow and find out more on our own terms. And CASEA business side would be the area where we can actually create courses out of our own experiences in our lives and be an opportunity to give back and contribute back into the community. So thank you so much for sharing this with me.
So what I'm saying is, Christina, apart from the whole structure that has been constructed, apart from the whole concept that has been constructed for CASEA Academy, we invite educators to join us because we have a very sophisticated method that allows DIY model or done for you model as to reach out to 16 countries. Yes, it's an outreach of business, but beneath it, it's actually helping others to learn in 16 countries. It's quite an exciting project. So we welcome you to join us and communicate with us. We'll be in touch with you.
I think that's actually a very interesting invitation that many people wouldn't have thought of before. So thank you, Roy, for actually opening that up for us today. And I'm a little cautious about time. So do you have any last words, words of inspiration? See how we can actually build this.
For both advocates, delegates, educators.
Yes.
Mayun has this saying, learning is everything. I have another saying, learning is the best ROI. Ladies and gentlemen, don't lose learning, keep learning.
And with that, I think it sums it up perfectly. Thank you, Roy, for joining us
Thank you,
today.
Christina.
And thank you, CASEA friends, for actually
Thank you, CASEA friends.
listening in once more. Look out for the rest of our podcast with the other founders that we're dying to bring to you. So with that, thank you very much.
Have a nice day.